A Supreme Court justice is courting controversy, if you will. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she just presided over a same-sex wedding in Washington. Okay. And she reportedly emphasized that it's a constitutional right to marry. Now, critics are saying, time out a second. There's a conflict of interest because the Supreme Court, by the way, will be ruling on the very issue of same-sex marriage. Now, we've seen things like this before here when it comes to the Supreme Court and the justices. Now, before the court opened the floodgates to unlimited political donations with that harebrained Citizens United case, I editorialized, conservative justices Antonin Scalia and Clarence Thomas, they spoke at events sponsored by the Koch brothers. They're, of course, the biggest political donors out there and the biggest supporters of, obviously, Citizens United. Okay, and we obviously had other incidences where Thomas's wife was very involved with plaintiffs in cases before the court and all the rest. Now, I happen to agree with Justice Ginsburg's position, but nonetheless, isn't it fair to say, wait a minute, you're going to be presiding over a case, in theory at least, open-minded, right, to the petitions on both plaintiff and defense here, and you're going to, with an open mind, decide whether or not this is a constitutional right or not. Here she is presiding over a wedding saying, this is your constitutional right to do so. It just feeds into the cynicism that it's 4-4 before the thing even starts, and depending on how Kennedy wakes up that morning, it's going to go one way or the other.
And so how does whether she officiates this wedding change anything? Do we not know how she feels without officiating this wedding?
But isn't this the one court, Jimmy, that they're not supposed to do that?
But they don't live in a bubble. And she officiated over a wedding that was legal. It was legal to do so, and she simply used the boilerplate language. She didn't say I'm marrying you because you have a constitutional right to get married.
Okay,
she said by the powers vested in me.
Time out, Doug. There is though the appearance, if not of impropriety, of doesn't smell right. And that is Jimmy's right, legal procession. She can officiate it. I don't think she needed to recuse herself. But if you're going to be hearing a case, if you're going to be deciding a case with literally national historic implications on this, don't officiate the wedding. Keep mum, and then when you write your majority opinion or dissenting opinion, whatever it is, then go out and do the things. I mean, they don't live in a bubble, but they do live in the real world where people are going to make judgments off this, no?
Well, there's no question that this is a statement by her. I mean, you're right, you're supposed to avoid the appearance of impropriety, but in this case, she actually went out to make a statement, and I think she made a statement, you know?
But Mayo, wouldn't I be a hypocrite? I screamed at this table about the blatant conflicts of interest with donors paying for huge events that the Koch brothers were throwing, and then you have the Scalias and the rest here, all there, like snug as bugs in the rug here with the corporate industry, and then all of a sudden they're ruling on the case. And then you could argue even with, Bush v. Gore, the cynicism of the public out there, the one vestige that we all believe was above all this, the Supreme Court. So few people believe they are anymore. I'm a hypocrite if I got a problem with what those guys did, and then she's officiating a wedding when she hasn't even made her opinion yet, no?
I think you're 100% correct, and I think that you see it across the board in politics, where if your candidate does something, it's okay. If the other does it, it can do the exact same thing, and then you have a problem with it. I think it's got to be, for not just the Supreme Court, by the way, all the courts, even down to your... Have you
seen this? Have you guys appeared before courts where you say, oh, my chances went out the window. This guy, this woman are directly involved, forget politically on campaigns, but they're directly involved with whatever issue or whatever else. Did you ever have the nerve to ask a judge to recuse themselves?
Oh, frequently, absolutely.
And can come bite you though, right?
No, you know what? You have to have the conviction, and you got to believe in what you're doing, and you can't be concerned about that because you have an obligation to your clients. And if you think someone can't be fair or can't be impartial.
If they don't choose to recuse themselves and you ask and it goes south, I gotta think human nature is they're gonna
make your record.
Would Judge Ginsburg find unconstitutional a same-sex marriage case that violated the Constitution for other principles? She would. So many of these Supreme Court justices are appointed, and everybody's convinced this is going to be the most right-wing guy you're ever going to see, and they don't rule that way.
You say that because I think down deep you like and respect Justice Ginsburg. Would you feel that way with the blanket conviction about Justice Thomas?
What I would say and what I will say to you
not
is
a
that
yes or a no.
no,
Yeah.
I would, but with the same cynicism. All I'm saying is that the fact that Justice Scalia spoke at that event doesn't change anything for me. I think I know the way he's going to rule on those issues either way. We know how they feel.
But Doug, on a bigger question, we the people, and you guys who go before, do I have a naive, delusional expectation of what a judge should or shouldn't be in terms of not just when they put the robe on and they sit behind the bench here, that they're going to listen to both sides equally, but that they need to live their lives differently than the four of us? Because they need to give the presentation to everybody that walks in that courtroom, the defendant, the plaintiff, their attorneys, the jury, that they're not us. They're not peers. They're more than that.
Yes, Rich, you're right. But people have to realize that they have lives. These judges, all these Supreme Court judges, they give lectures constantly. They lecture to students, judges all around, state court judges, federal judges. They're constantly out there. And they don't have to not have an opinion. The question is whether they're giving an opinion on something that they're going to have to rule upon later on. But they certainly have lives. And a lot of them were lawyers beforehand.
All right, I got to hit a break here because I want to get to this one next. And this is questions about how the court process works here. And all these guys obviously have seen a whole bunch of insides of courtrooms here. A look at some high-profile criminal cases. And I'm going to ask these guys to explain how kind of the sausage is made here. Prosecutor in the Eton Potts case here wants a retrial yet again. How does that work? And how many do-overs do you get before it becomes double, triple, quadruple jeopardy? And then the Baltimore DA wants to put a gag order when it comes to the attorneys for the cops and those cops. But at the same end, she wants to keep speaking up here. Who gets to tell who to clam up? We'll get into that as well.